Welcome to Behind the Scenes. I'm your host, Hector Montalvo. This show is dedicated to asking tough questions for you, the viewers. We bring you their responses, and we let you decide. Joining us here today at our MCTV studios, we are honored to be sitting here with our Senator, State Senator, Mr. Sen.Steven Baddour. Welcome to the show, Mr. Baddour.
Great to be here, Hector. Great to be here.
Mr. Baddour, what is the job of a state senator?
What's a job? Great question. It's one that I think a lot of people sometimes get confused with, but it's really basically to represent the people of the 1st Essex District, which represents 7 communities from Methuen up to Newburyport. So it's to understand the district, it's to go to Beacon Hill and to fight for what they believe are the interests and the issues most concerning to the people of this district. I think we've done that well. It's difficult at times, but there's a lot to the job. It's out on the road. It's working to help level the playing field for small businesses so they can compete with New Hampshire, for example, especially for those of us who represent border communities. It's fighting for families who are just struggling day in and day out to sometimes get through the bureaucratic red tape. So there's a lot of that give and take in the job, but it comes down to representing the people of the district to the best ability you can in Boston, where you're competing with all other parts of the Commonwealth and all the parts of other people's agendas and issues. So it's challenging.
And I can publicly state that nobody has represented the district of our district better than you.
Thanks, Hector. I appreciate that.
And let me just ask you, why don't you tell some of the viewers some of the work that you have done for the district?
Sure. No, I appreciate it, the opportunity. There's different areas. I mean, obviously, when it's coming to tax policies, I'm proud to represent this part of the Commonwealth, knowing and understanding the small business community in terms of the impact that New Hampshire has. So I fought, I haven't voted in my career to vote to increase taxes. I fought, unfortunately, unsuccessfully, to not to raise the sales tax this time around, fought to level that playing field. One of the biggest issues from a small business perspective was healthcare costs. If you look at, for 6 years now, I've been working with the Mass Retailers Association filing a bill to allow small businesses to group their members together and then to go negotiate with health insurance companies to bring down premiums. If you look at big business, big government, they've seen single-digit increases over the last 6 or 7 years. Small businesses have seen double-digit increases because they can't combine all their members and go negotiate. So for 6 years, we fought Washington, special interests, a lot of different folks who didn't want that because the insurance companies had a sort of a stranglehold on this issue. Finally, as part of the economic development bill that we passed this year, we included in there language to allow small businesses to group buy. And John Hurst, the president of the Mass Retailers, and others have said it's the most important piece of legislation in 20 years for small business. So that was a big one for me. My proudest moment, though, was Melanie's Law, working with then Governor Mitt Romney to have right now really the toughest, one of the toughest repeat drunk driving laws in the country. So we've done a lot, children's issues, whether it's dealing with sex abusers, dealing with those who want to prey on our children. Jessica's Law was another opportunity. We worked with the district attorneys to toughen the laws for those who want to take advantage and prey upon young children. So a lot of different issues, some smaller ones in terms of just helping constituents out on a lot of different issues. So it varies.
And you have a primary, and you don't have a primary, right? But you do have two opponents running up against you. If you were reelected, what are some of the bills that you like to bring forward for your constituents? I
think it's to continue to fight to level that playing field for small businesses. One of the priorities I think all of us have to have next year's legislative session is jobs. We need to do things that are going to generate and create new jobs. We've done some things in this legislative session to tax policy changes to give some small business some breaks, but we need to give small businesses more tools in terms of combating rising cost of health insurance. We need to do more in terms of creating private sector jobs, not public sector jobs, private sector jobs. And the way you do that is to break that logjam of bureaucratic sort of red tape. One of the issues that I want to file, we meet with some of my Republican friends, we want to do it in a bipartisan way, is to give the legislature sort of a veto on regulatory burdens that are placed on small business. For example, we'll pass a law and we give agencies the ability to draft regulations. A lot of these agencies go way beyond the scope that the legislature set up. So we need to go back in and have an overview or a look back in those regulations to see if they've exceeded the sort of what the legislative intent of those bills are. So there's areas on the small business side and a whole host of other areas. Zero-based budgeting. It's It's one of the issues that Bruce Tarr and I have filed every single year since I've been elected. Part of the problem with state government, and this is one of the areas we've been fighting for since day one, every year, every state agency comes before the legislature and says, for example, we had $100 million last year. This year we want $120 million. And they only fight for that $20 million. They don't explain how they spent their $100 million. What we need to do is go back and say, okay, start at zero. Give us the reason why you need every single penny. And we're going to continue on that crusade as well.
Who are you supporting for governor in this election?
This is an election year. I'm a Democrat. I'll be with Governor Patrick. But at the same time, I understand the fact that people are angry, people are upset. I've proven myself as someone who's been independent, who looks at the issues. But I think in the end, we've had a rocky relationship, the governor and I. We fought on a lot of different issues. But in the end, the one thing I've always liked about Governor Patrick, and I've said this to him just the other day, is with him, it's okay to disagree. We just can't be disagreeable about it. And that's part of, I think, the problem that a lot of us face in government today. It's no longer you can disagree. And once we disagree, we stop the conversation. You've got to get beyond that. It's okay to disagree, but you got to continue to fight for issues that matter. But I'm with the governor, and I think there's more work to be done in terms of reforms, leveling that playing field. Look, I disagree with him on a lot of different issues, but at the end of the day, he's been effective. He's been to Methuen. He's been to the district a lot. I want to continue that relationship.
You recently brought forward a bill which was signed into law, which calls for anyone obtaining a restraining order to do so under the pains and penalties of perjury. Why did you feel it was important to bring such a bill?
Because you brought it to my attention. As we talked about before, I've been on both sides of these issues in terms of as a lawyer in the Attorney General's office and as a defense lawyer. And for every time someone abuses the system at the court system, especially in areas of restraining orders, domestic violence, it hurts those individuals who are there for legitimate reasons. So what we need to do is tighten up the rules, show people that if you're going to use the system in a nefarious or a negative way, there's penalties associated with that. And for far too long, and listen, you brought it to our attention with the group when you came into the State House, was it probably a year ago now, that there's abuse there. And we need to send a message to people that we're not going to tolerate that. And one of the ways was to show and to reemphasize the fact that if you go to court seeking a restraining order, whether it's on the weekend we do an emergency temporary restraining order, that you need to do it under the pains and penalties of perjury to give prosecutors that ability to go back after someone who does it fraudulently. And unfortunately, it happens more often than people think. And we need to get more aggressive in ensuring that when you come forward, you're doing it for the right reasons, number one, and it's truthful. And people keep gaming the system too many times. And again, it's just sending the right message.
Now, many say that government has forgotten who they work for. Do you see government working to enhance the people, or are they working to enhance themselves?
I think in some cases, Hector, you're always going to see. I think government. It's partly why I'm a Democrat. I still think government can do good. We need to do more in terms of giving people sort of a hand up instead of a hand out, quite frankly. But there are plenty of examples of people taking advantage of government. Those people who are in positions of power, who take advantage of it on the national level as well as the state level and the local level. But I think overall, the vast majority of people who are in government, who either serve in elected office or who are employees of the Commonwealth or the city or the federal government, do it for the right reasons, and they do a good job at it. They get a lot of abuse at times. Some of it's self-inflicted, quite frankly. But I think overall, I think government can do a much better job. Look, there's always ways of retooling and doing things differently. It's why we filed a number of the bills we filed in terms of, just looking back. Let's have an overview at every agency. Why don't we look at state government and just assume that every agency that's been there for 50, 60, 70 years is still needed today? We need to go back and look at those agencies. Do we actually need that? Especially in today's economic climate where we don't have enough money to fund local aid, to fund local police and firefighters and teachers. If we're laying off police, firefighters, and teachers, we need to be doing a better job of looking at waste, inefficiency, and duplication. There's a lot more that we could be doing there. That's where I think state government has done an okay job, but there's a lot more we can be doing there. Zero-based budgeting is just a start on that, but there's more that we can do.
Now, many will say that Beacon Hill is full of educated and professional people with diplomas, bachelor's degrees, and most of them even have a law license. Yet, some will argue that the same people have moved the Commonwealth in the wrong direction. Do people really need to have those type of qualifications to serve the people?
No, there is no qualifications for educational background, for example, to be a rep, to be a senator. There are certain positions I think that you want somebody who has sort of the background, the education, or sometimes even just the experience. There's plenty of examples where experience trumps education. For example, I think in some cases in law enforcement, where if you've been served in the military, you might not have a bachelor's degree, but you have that military experience that should trump it. I mean, that should count for something. On the government side, there is no requirement to have a bachelor's, a law degree, or anything like that. Look, there's always going to be those who argue we're going in one direction. There's the same people, the other people argue we're going in the right direction. Part of being an elected official is trying to strike that balance. And sort of, I've often said this on controversial issues, if everyone's mad at you, you've done the right thing. And there's plenty of examples where I'd like to try to be in the middle, but sometimes being in the middle isn't the most popular place, and sometimes it's not the right place to be in, too. Sometimes being an elected official, you have to take a position, you take a vote, and you're just going to anger people on one side of the issue or not. And what we try to do is explain it. I mean, I think I've taken enough votes that are controversial, but I'm confident that I can explain to people why I took that vote. You might not agree with it, but at least you'll understand why I did it.
You're watching Behind the Scenes. If you have a question that you want us to ask government or legal representation, send us an email at the Hector Montalvo Show at yahoo.com. We're joined here today with Senator Baddour. And Mr. Baddour, how open and transparent would your administration be with your constituents if you're reelected?
It'll be just, we are open. We're open and transparent now. Facebook, the internet, emails, phone calls, people knocking on the door. So we try to be as open and transparent as we can. We post votes. We do as much as we can in terms of the internet, dealing with the media, coming on shows like this. We try to be as open as we can be. You'll see soon the legislature is going to be announcing a new web page that will have much better interaction so that people can go and watch the Senate debates, they can watch the House debates, they can see the votes that we take. Everything we do, for the most part, is open to the public. There's a lot of things in terms of constituent services where you don't necessarily want it to be open to the public because people are giving you confidential information, medical information you're trying to help them with. But I think a lot of what we do is open, and it should be. That's why, every public hearing we do. If you ask, there's a woman, Janet, who videotapes legislative hearings. I think she might have actually been on your show.
Yeah.
And I mean, that poor woman has been abused at the State House by a lot of different committee chairs. I wouldn't tolerate that. I mean, every transportation hearing you can ask her, it's open. We allow her to videotape it. We allow her, to ask questions, to testify. So we have open and transparent meetings. We've had hearings here in Methuen, Transportation Committee hearings, in Merrimack, in different parts of the district that I represent. So we try to bring as much as we can state government back to the district at hours that people can be there. Part of the problem with government right now is, it's sort of, hearings are during the day. Well, most people work during the day. So you get sort of only the special interests that come in where most people are at home or at work. And it's difficult. So that's why we try to do, forums at night. We do different forums, healthcare forums, all kinds of different events around issues. So, for example, we did the healthcare debate, the economic development piece that we talked about. We had some forums up at Northern Essex Community College where we invited, the chambers of commerce and their members and different business communities to come and listen to the experts and sort of where we were heading with that and give feedback back to us on those particular issues.
Now, as a senator, do you have any regulations that you can work with in the school to get children more involved in their government, like in the high school level?
I'm not sure what regulations. I try to go to the school. I love going to the high schools, to the grammar schools, to talking, to kids about the importance of getting involved in the community. We always bring, kids from, the grammar schools to the State House for tours of the State House. Every time, whether it's whatever in my district, any of the communities where there's kids that come in, I always try to get there, to walk them around, bring them into the Senate chamber, talk to them about. It wasn't too long ago I sat in those chairs as a young student, sort of got interested in government. And I think that's important to instill upon a lot of these young kids that they can be serving in these positions. We need them to. We need young people to get much more involved in government, involved in politics, involved in their communities. And one way of doing that is just that fact. I brought in different folks to come in and talk to the different schools just about different issues in terms of whether it's drunk driving, texting, the problems with texting while driving. AT&T is doing they go into the different high schools and they engage the students in some challenges in terms of, not texting while driving. So we do a lot of that.
Nice. And we also see that, we saw that Martha Stewart was prosecuted for lying to the FBI. We saw Roger Clemens was indicted for lying to Congress.
Yep.
Yet most people feel that our government lied to us. Is there any particular bill that you as a senator can bring forward that will allow the people to charge government if they lie to them?
What do you mean? When you say government,
just government in general. Just a lot of people feel like they've been lied to.
But if they haven't, that's why you have attorney generals across the Commonwealth. You have the U.S. Attorney's Office, where you've seen elected officials, those in power, both local, state, federal, get in trouble for lying, for example, for engaging in in activities that's illegal. So we have that in terms of giving. I just don't necessarily understand in terms of how you would do it, but I'm sure there are laws on the books now that would give people that opportunity to go to the Attorney General's office, to go to the U.S. Attorney's office, to report what they think are criminal activity. And those, look, at the end of the day, even for those of us in elected officials, every 2 years we're up for an election. If people disagree with us, trust me, people disagree with positions I've taken, from far left to the far right. I have friends and foes alike, but that's the business. You have to get. When I first ran, we got great in Methuen, great in the different communities, and once you start taking votes, people get mad. They look at Scott Brown, for example. He's an independent Republican, and he started taking some votes that the Tea Party, got angry about. Now they're mad at him. You can't in politics make everyone happy all of the time. But at the end of the day, as long as you can go home and put your head on the pillow and fall asleep knowing you did the right thing, that's what matters at the end of the day. And the way you do that is by voting in ways that represent the community that you represent. Look, it's easy to go to Beacon Hill and to sort of get into that Beacon Hill clique, where the sales tax is a great example. There's no way, as a senator that represents primarily all border communities, that I could have voted to raise the sales tax. It just didn't make any sense. I got more pressure from the governor, leadership, that it was important, it was a way to. It wasn't. There were other things we should have done. But we stood up and said, no, I'm not going to vote for a sales tax. I should resign my seat, quite frankly, before I vote for a sales tax. It's going to have such a negative impact on the communities that I represent.
Now, we've been pleased to have other candidates who are running for different offices. Yeah. And we had write-in candidate Jim McKenna, who's running for Attorney General. And he called for cameras in the courtroom. Being that you guys are going to be having the cameras in your broadcasting your stuff, yep. Should cameras be allowed in the courtrooms? I
think they are now in courtrooms across the Commonwealth. So television cameras, there's individuals going in and videotaping?
Well, just recording so the public, so the people can actually see
I don't think there's an issue with that. I wouldn't have a problem with that. The only problem that I would have is that some trials, there's too many lawyers who play to the camera and not to the judge or not to the jury. And I think you've seen that in some of the bigger cases that you see on some of the Fox News stations, stuff like that. So you just have to be careful that if we do it in a way that still has the dignity and respect that the courtroom deserves, and that those who are on trial deserve. It's not just about the camera in the courtroom. If you're a defendant and you're charged with a crime, whether you're guilty or not, you don't want to make a circus out of it, and you want to ensure that that individual whose liberty is at stake is receiving a fair trial. So there's plenty of times when cameras are in the courtroom. If we do it, we just need to make sure there's some structure to it. But I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Now, some say that court opens at 9 o'clock, yet we see judges coming in on the bench at 9:30, 10 o'clock. Should judges be sitting on the bench at 9 o'clock when courtroom?
It depends, Hector. Not all of being a judge is about sitting on that, sitting on the chair behind the bench. A lot of it is, research. It's writing. It's reading the materials. Look, as a lawyer, sometimes that morning, you have 20 cases before you as a judge. You have 20 different lawyers filing, all kinds of motions. So a lot of it is preparing for the day at hand. So, I think judges need to do a better job. Trust me, I've sat there, even in the when I was in the Assistant Attorney General. You sit there and I call it you hurry up and wait. you're rushing to court, you get there at 8:55, you think it's 9 o'clock, and you wait until 9:30, 10 o'clock sometimes. And then there's other times like, all right, listen, the judge is never there on time. I'll get there at 9:15, and the judge is there at 9 o'clock, and they're ready to default you for being late. So it's that hurry up and wait mentality, but it's difficult. I mean, a lot of people see that's the face is when they're on the bench, but a lot of the work that they do is sort of behind the scenes. It's reading, it's updating on the law, and it's understanding what is coming before them. And there's a lot of that morning, or emails that come in. A lot of judges now are requesting things via email in terms of pleadings to save on paper. So you see more and more of that. So that morning they're showing up. As long as that's the reason, if they're doing other things, no, they should be there at 9. They should be on the bench. If it means getting there a little early, I think most of them get there early, and hopefully they get there early and they're prepared to go forward.
And what about open public records made public to the public? Most people say that those documents are not public because they have to pay for it. What can be done to make them?
It's ludicrous, to be honest with you. The price that some communities, some agencies charge, in essence, make it not open, not public. So we need to look at that this year. There's been this push now, and I've been there 7, 8 years now. There's a couple issues that have sort of always been out there but never been sort of at the forefront. The open meeting law is now an issue that's out there. It's open. It's not open. It's out front. People are really talking about it. And that's one of the big issues that people talk about. I mean, to charge 50 cents, $1 per page, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And that sort of defeats the whole purpose of giving people the opportunity to look at documents. And it might just be sometimes what the federal government does is they'll open it up, say, okay, here's a room, here's the documents, take a look at them. When you're done, come out, as opposed to requiring people to go in and put up a lot of money up front to photocopy. Now, from the government side, I understand the argument that you're taking someone away from doing their normal duties to sit at a copy machine all day to make copies. But there's a balance there. We just got to figure out what that is.
Right. What are you hearing as you go knocking door to door? Because I know you're out there knocking on all different doors. So what are you hearing from your constituents?
There's frustration. I think people are angry. I think there's a lot more anger on the national level, but it sort of filters its way down. I think they want a level playing field. They think government is spending too much, and they're right. And we need to do a better job of leveling that playing field. It's one of the areas I've always talked about. It's jobs, taxes, and accountability. That's sort of what I've ran on 8 years ago, 9 years ago. It's what I'm running on today. It's to continue to fight for those issues that matter. People are struggling. They're hurting. And they don't see government right now helping. They see government, I mean, look at the illegal immigration issue. How are we laying off police, fire, teachers, I said earlier, the assistant district attorneys, the whole gamut of public sector employees, yet we're providing benefits to those who are here illegally? It doesn't make any sense. So there's more that we can be doing.
And what's next for Senator Baddour?
Running for re-election. So we're up for re-election this November. Hopefully, we're going to have the opportunity to get out there, explain, the issues that go. Be able to, I think, what I love about elections, it gives those of us in office the opportunity to remind people of the things that we've done. Not everyone's going to agree. I think a lot of people paint a broad brush, and they say all Democrats are like, all Republicans are like Tea Partiers. And I think there's a lot of us who are independent, who look at the issues. I think it was John F. Kennedy who said, it doesn't matter if it's a Democratic issue or a Republican issue. If it's right for the people you represent, then you support it. And I like to think I've done that on a number of controversial issues. And we're going to continue to do that.
What is one of the bills that you plan on working on to see through that is signed into law?
I think one of the ones clear that we're going to be working on is that one dealing with, zero-based budgeting is one that we're going to continue to fight for. The issue that I'm hearing more and more, especially from small business owners, is the regulatory burden that as legislators in government, we don't see it because we'll pass a law, give it to the bureaucrats, and then they'll just expand upon it. So we got to rein that back in. That's one of the big issues that I'm hearing more and more and more about from especially small business owners who are just, they're not sure. They're going to bed every night not sure they can open the doors the next day. And it's in part because of all of the bureaucratic red tape, paperwork, the mandates that not only government's putting on them, but the bureaucratic government is putting on them. That's stuff that we don't see every single day, and it's an area that we need to focus on.
What are some of the ways that you think can help these small business owners to expand? I know right now that they're there's a cap on how many people they can hire before they're mandated to pay health insurance. Should that number increase a little bit just to give them room?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the areas that we need to look at in light of the federal government passing its health care bill, Massachusetts obviously was first in doing it. We need to look at both bills, and where Massachusetts is overly generous, we need to pull it back and sort of match the federal side. Where there's duplication, we should eliminate the state mandate, become more in line with what the federal government has said, if that's what's going to continue. One of the areas that we need to do for state government, again, is level that playing field. We need to eliminate the sales tax, for example, on alcohol. I mean, there's no reason why that should be double taxed. We should bring back the sales tax to 5%, so that at least we are somewhat a little bit more competitive with our friends up north. So there's tax structure that we need to do, tax policy that we need to do more of. And it's, again, I think it's sort of just, it's getting that bureaucratic red tape out of the way. And that's a new issue. A lot of times people for the last couple of years have really been talking about the healthcare side. We've done that. I think the group insurance buy that we've passed last year is going to make a huge difference. The sales tax holiday was helpful. We need to do more of those for the border communities. But at the same time, it's the bureaucratic red tape we need to go more after.
Well, we appreciate Senator Baddour being here with us today, being open and transparent for the constituents of his community. And why don't you tell the viewers how they can reach you if they want to help you out on holding signs, support you in your campaign, get your message out there?
Sure. They can visit us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. My webpage is StevenBaddour.com. On the government side, so on the non-political side, you can always contact us at the State House. You can email at steven.baddour@state.ma.us. You got to give us some time to respond. We get at times hundreds of emails a day, and just sort of going through the ones from the district, ones from out of state, it's difficult. But we try to get back to people as fast as we can on issues that matter to people. But again, I think people, we talked about this off air earlier. At the end of the day, people need to get more involved. And whether it's voting for me or not voting for me, voting for you or not, show up at the polls, get more engaged in your community. We all benefit from that.
Yeah, we have the government that we picked,
Absolutely.
And we can't complain if you don't go out and actually vote. What about the foreclosures? I know that you worked hard on holding them accountable to maintaining the properties when they're unoccupied. How is that coming along?
It's coming along, but it's still way too many foreclosures.